शुरू करें हम लोग कि ये थोड़ा
जी
वेट है।
जी जी, शुरू कर सकते हैं।
हम्म।
जी सर, आपने लाइव
तो व्योम तमे करो जो पहला बात
ना सर, लाइव करिए क्या?
ओके। सभी को प्रणाम। डॉक्टर पवन जी जैन को भी प्रणाम। स्कल्पचर एंड टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर ऑफ इंडिया इस ऑनलाइन सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स में जो प्रतिभागी जुड़े हुए हैं उन सभी को मैं प्रणाम करता हूं और स्वागत करता हूं। आप सभी ने पिछले 3 लेक्चर में देखा होगा, सुना होगा और बहुत सारी बातें आपको जानने को मिली होगी। डॉक्टर पवन जी जैन इस विषय के बहुत बड़े निष्णात विदुषी है। बहुत सारी मेहनत और विगत कई वर्षों की मेहनत आपने देखा होगा कि अलग अलग जगह के बहुत अच्छे फोटोग्राफ्स, बहुत अच्छे चित्र, हम जब ये सब देखते हैं तो लगता है कि हम स्वयं वहाँ परिभ्रमण कर रहे हैं और एक के बाद एक नई नई बातें स्थापत्य के विषय में, मूर्तिकला के विषय में और भारतीय शिल्पियों की जो विशेषता है उन विशेषताओं के विषय में बहुत ही अच्छी तरह हमें ज्ञान प्राप्त हो रहा है। BL इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडोलॉजी, जिसका पूरा नाम है भोगीलाल लहरचंद भारतीय संस्कृति विद्या मंदिर, विगत 5 दशकों से भारतीय विद्या पर गहन अध्ययन, संशोधन, प्रकाशन और अध्यापन का कार्य कर रहा है। इस संस्थान के द्वारा विगत 4 दशकों से प्राकृत भाषा का अध्ययन कराया जाता है। भारतवर्ष में ये अकेला एक इंस्टीट्यूट है जिसमें प्राकृत भाषा का संपूर्ण अभ्यास कराया जाता है। 30 दिनों में भारत के प्रकांड प्राकृत भाषा के विद्वानों के द्वारा प्राकृत भाषा सिखाई जाती है और विद्यार्थियों को, जिज्ञासुओं को 30 दिन में प्राकृत भाषा में न केवल प्रवेश कराया जाता है लेकिन स्वयं प्राकृत भाषा में संभाषण भी कर सकते हैं। इतनी क्षमता उनको प्राप्त हो जाती है। करीब 50 से अधिक ग्रंथों का प्रकाशन हुआ है। हमारे इस संस्थान द्वारा यूपी शाह, पंडित दलसुख मालवनिया, SB देव, NR बैनर्जी, सत्यरंजन बैनर्जी, प्रोफेसर GC त्रिपाठी जी जैसे भारतीय विद्या के प्रकांड विद्वानों ने अपनी सेवा दी है और उसके कारण संस्था जा रहा है। पिछले साल चीजें लिखित ग्रंथों में, पांडुलिपियों में अद्भुत एक सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स किया था जो अपने आप में शायद इस विषय में ये पहला बहुत उन्होंने करवाया था। इस बार हम लोगों ने भारतीय स्थापत्य कला, मूर्ति कला के विषय में ये सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स, ऑनलाइन सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स का आयोजन किया है। 16 लेक्चर तक चलने वाला यह कोर्स, जिसमें भारत देश की प्राचीन से लेकर के अर्वाचीन काल तक की मूर्तिकला और स्थापत्य के विषय में हमें जानने को मिलेगा। साथ ही साथ भारत के विभिन्न प्रदेशों में स्थापत्य कला का कैसे विकास हुआ था, उसकी क्या विशेषता थी, आज क्या स्थिति है, आदि आदि अनेक बातें इनके व्याख्यान में की जाएगी। आज का जो विषय है अपने आप में एक अनूठा विषय है। पिछले कई सालों से कश्मीर पूरा डिस्टर्ब रहा है, बहुत कुछ नष्ट हुआ है, या बहुत कुछ ऐसी जगह है जहां हम जा नहीं पाते हैं, और बहुत सारे स्थापत्य वहां से अलग अलग जगह पर विस्थापित भी हुए हैं। तो वो सारी बातें, उसमें क्या कैसे था, वो सारी बातें आज पवन जी हमें बताएंगे। साथ ही हिमाचल प्रदेश के स्थापत्य, मंदिरों के बारे में, मूर्तिकला के बारे में भी आज हमें बात करेगी। मैं और ज्यादा समय नहीं लूंगा। इस ऑनलाइन सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स में मैं सभी प्रतिभागियों को ये कहना चाहता हूं कि आप लोगों ने जिस उत्साह से आज तक इसमें अध्ययन करने की रुचि दिखाई है, आप जुड़े हुए हैं और आगे भी जुड़ते रहेंगे, यही मेरी आप सबसे से गुजारिश है कि आप अंत तक जुड़े रहेंगे तो आपको बहुत ज्ञान प्राप्त होगा और भारतीय स्थापत्य कला के विषय में आपका प्रवेश हो जाएगा। जब प्रवेश होगा तो आप कहीं यात्रा पर जाते होंगे या कहीं कोई प्रदेश में स्थापत्य कला के हिसाब से आप वहाँ परिभ्रमण करेंगे तो और भी नई नई बातें आपको जानने को मिलेगी। तो इस दृष्टि से यह बीएल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडोलॉजी का एक महत्वपूर्ण प्रस्थान है और आप सब इस प्रस्थान में सहयात्री बने हैं। इसलिए मैं आप सबको आप सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत करता हूँ। इस ऑनलाइन सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स के लिए हमारे संस्थान के अध्यक्ष श्री राजकुमार जी ओसवाल, हमारे संस्थान के अध्यक्ष, दूसरे अध्यक्ष जो निर्मल कुमार भोगीलाल हैं, जिनके दादाजी के नाम से यह संस्थान चल रहा है। भोगीलाल, निर्मल भाई के पिताजी का नाम भोगीलाल और भोगीलाल जी के पिताजी का नाम निर्मल भाई के पिताजी का नाम प्रताप भाई और प्रताप भाई के पिताजी का नाम भोगीलाल लहरचंद, जो पाटन के नगर शेठ हुआ करते थे। बाद में वो बंबई गए और अब वहीं से उन्होंने अपना धंधा व्यापार शुरू किया और पूरे देश में विदेशों में धंधा फैला हुआ है। निर्मल भाई स्वयं कला के बहुत बड़े पारखी हैं और उनके घर में भी चित्रकला और स्थापत्य के बहुत सारे नमूने उन्होंने एकत्रित किए हैं। उनका घर आप वहाँ जाएंगे तो आपको म्यूजियम जैसा लगेगा। हर एक कोने में, हर एक दीवार पर चित्र लगाए हुए, मूर्तियां स्थापित की हुई है। तो कला के वो पारखी है, कला के रसिक है, कला के लिए वो बहुत ही प्रयत्न करते हैं। हमारे एक बहुत बड़े ज्ञानी और रुचि रखने वाले उपाध्यक्ष थे, जो 2-3 साल पहले उनका देहांत हो गया, जिनके नाम उनके पुत्र ने, सुगत ने, उनके पिताजी की स्मृति में भी इसमें योगदान दिया है। और दर्शन कुमार जी, जो दनेश जी उनका नाम था, और दर्शन कुमार जो हमारे इस संस्थान के ट्रस्टी भी हैं, उन्होंने अपनी मातोश्री की स्मृति में भी इस सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स के लिए योगदान दिया है। मैं उन सभी का आभार मानता हूं और समय न लेते हुए आज के व्याख्यान के प्रारंभ करने के लिए मैं डॉक्टर पवन कुमार जी को आमंत्रित करता हूं कि आज आप जो अपना विषय है कश्मीर और हिमाचल प्रदेश की स्थापत्य कला, उस विषय पर आप प्रकाश डालें। पधारिए।
Thank you, Jitin Bhai ji. Yes, we are all together now, and we can go ahead on a journey, visiting various temples. Yeah. So Kashmir and hill temples. I'm not going to restrict myself only to Himachal. We'll also visit some of the temples of the Garhwal or the Kumaon region. By way of that, we will be kind of having an overview of the hill temples. Yeah. Okay. So Kashmir and hill temples, that's the topic for today's session. Kashmir, if today we talk about Kashmir, what comes to our mind is, of course, it's the Islamic State that we talk about, isn't it? For past many number of years, and it has become the boiling pot of all kinds of controversies, etc., etc. But it very. Uh, can you hear me, all of you? Yeah.
हाँ, आप सुनाई दे, आपकी आवाज अच्छी तरह सुनाई दे रही है.
Got a message. Okay.
आगे बढ़िए.
So, but Kashmir, if we delve into the history of Kashmir, we will all be very surprised to know that Buddhism, actually, there are quite a few Buddhist monuments that you will get in and around Kashmir, which some of them are also in Pakistan and Afghanistan. We all know about the Bamia Buddha at all. So this was introduced in 3rd century BC and went on, almost till 6th, 7th centuries. Okay. But after 8th century CE, Buddhism was kind of overshadowed by the cults of Vaishnavism and the Shaivism also. And Kashmir was, in fact, the most important and famous center for Sanskrit learning and literature between 6th to 12th centuries. I think many of us would not know about this fact. And in fact, all the Pancharatra, Vaishnava Agmas, the Shaiva Agmas, they all have their origin in the region of Kashmir. And the very famous Sanskrit poets like, Maitrigupta, Damodar Gupta, Bhama, Anandvardhan, who's written Dhvanyalok, or Abhinav Gupta, who wrote commentary on Dhvanyalok, etc. Kshamendra, Mammat, Somdev, Kalhan, who wrote Rajtarangini. In fact, the main source of the history of Kashmir, if today we know, it is from his very poetical work on historiography of Kashmir, which was written in the 12th century. And he was a Kashmiri court poet, Kalhan, who composed detailed and very authentic history of the land from 6th century through his lifetime. Okay. So some of the facts that we get before 6th century in Rajtarangini, they are more or less, they are like approximation, and the authenticity of those facts need to be checked with other texts also. Then there was, of course, Bilhan, who wrote Chaur Panchashika. Very interesting legend is there when he falls in love with the princess, with the daughter of a king. And of course, he had this secret love affair. And when they were discovered, he was thrown into the prison. And it was while he was waiting for the judgment, he wrote this Chaur Panchashika, a 50 stanza love poem, which actually, not knowing whether, he would be sent into exile or he would die or, whatever that his fate would be. So it is unknown as to what really happened to Bilhan as such and what fate did he encounter. But nevertheless, his poem was transmitted orally all around. And of course, there are, different sets of miniature paintings, Chaur Panchashika series, which we find from different regions of India, especially the central India, which has become very popular today. And actually, those paintings actually have a definite, transition point from Jain paintings to Rajasthani paintings, right? Okay. Then the Brahminical temples of Kashmir, if we talk about, they differ very much from the temples of the plains in several aspects, I would say that. They have neither the stepped roof that we saw in the South Indian temples nor the, curved spire or the, curvilinear spire we have in the Naga temples. All right. And the typical Hindu columns of north, nor the exuberance of the decorative details which are characterized, in the architecture of the North and South Indian temple. So the Vahana mandapas, or the figures of the vehicles of the deities which are, worshipped in the temple, are also not present in most of the hill temples, especially Kashmir temples. We rarely find them. Okay. So what is so typical about Kashmir temple then? So most of the architecture, it is inspired and also is governed by the local domestic dwellings or the domestic architecture. And why so? Because of the climatic conditions, the severe climatic conditions that the Kashmirs have to, confront, the heavy snowfall that they have. So that is why if we were to have, like this, something like this, a structure or a pedimented roof, it will not serve the purpose because the snow will get deposited there, and the structure, at times, it may not be able to take the weight of the snow. So, and also the, as I said, there were a lot of Buddhist Chaityagrahas and the Viharas in the region of Kashmir at that time. So what you're looking on the screen actually is very much inspired by the Buddhist Chaityas and the Viharas, like how normally you have the, Viharas, the small quarters for the monks all along the side. Similarly, you have the same feature in the Kashmir Brahminic temples also. And also, because of the heavy snow, they have these, gabled roofs or the pedimented roofs. And most of the temples which were built earlier, they would use wood. Wood was also a very big medium for the temple building. And also the locally available stone, which would be schist, blue kind of schist, which was being used in the making of these temples. Okay, right. So we will talk about two dynasties, the Karkota dynasty and the Utpal dynasty. So in Karkota dynasty, Lalitaditya Muktapid, he has been the most important king. In fact, when he came to the throne of Kashmir, at some time in the beginning of the 8th century. So with his arrival in the political scene, a new era of achievements or construction began, and temple building activities were actually, it got a very, very, new push or boost, I would say that, during his period, right? And typical Kashmiri architecture actually starts making its appearance only from the time of Lalitaditya Muktapida. Okay, so you have Martan Sun Temple, which is the most famous temple of Kashmir, which is dedicated to sun god. All right, and then we have the Utpal dynasty and Anantivarman, who actually is also responsible for founding Avantipura. The most two famous temples that we talk about from his reign are the Avantiswamy temple, which is dedicated to Vishnu, and Avantishvara temple, which is dedicated to Shiva. Okay. So what you're looking on the screen is, of course, the restored impression of the Martan temple, okay, from the letters which from India and Kashmir by an author, J. Dagwit, okay, which was written in 1870 to 1873. So that old it is. So by looking at this, we immediately, are reminded of the Buddhist Vihar structure. So let's talk about some of the facts about the historiography as to which were the art historians who got interested in knowing what about the Kashmir temples and the architectures, etc. So Alexander Cunningham, the very first DG of the ASI, which was set up by the Britishers, he said that the details of the Kashmiri temples was borrowed from Greek architecture. In fact, he was one that anything which was nice about Indian art, he would always relate it to the Greek art, that it is a direct borrowing from Greek architecture. Whereas James Ferguson, in fact, he's also called the father of Indian temple architecture, an authority of Indian architecture, I could say, said that some of these Greek elements that you see in Kashmir temples, they came from the Gandhar region. Gandhar is, of course, the adjoining part of Kashmir, right? Now in Afghanistan. So there was a lot of Gandharan influence in the Kashmiri architecture. And so that's why we feel that it is the regional influence and also the climatic conditions that have influenced the overall architecture of Kashmir. Okay. So even the Gandharan school, for that matter, was influenced by the Greeks, because we know that at that point, for the longest time, Greeks were ruling that area. Okay. So the main trefoil arch that you are seeing, when I say trefoil, means these three arches, just one arch is missing, which will complete it into a flower. So this is called a trefoil arch. So most of this, I mean, this became almost a late motif, the basic motif in the Gandharan art that we see. In fact, most of the Buddhist stupas, you will find them. There is a deity inside these, trefoil arch. All right. So normally you will have this kind of apogee or, a semicircular arch, but this kind of arch was very much typical of the Gandharan school. Okay. We know Gandhar was ruled by the Kushans also, and there were these two schools were, going on simultaneously, Mathura school and the Gandhar school. Okay. Then let's see what the Indian art historians like the Dayaram Sahni, he said that although this pediments, this is called the pedimented roof, or the gabled roof, right, like this. Okay. Columns, and the columns also, they definitely they have Greek influence, but they have not been copied, in totality, I would say. So, in fact, the architects were conversant with Greek architecture, but did not go all the way, and as the Gandharan artists had done, and in the first century. Then E.B. Havel, another art historian, in fact, he was so much pro to Indian art and anything related to India. He said that none of the Greek ornaments like the honeysuckle or the acanthus, these are the motifs we find on the Mauryan pillars also, right? These are all missing from Kashmir temples or architecture. And instead we find the Kalash, the Yaksha, the Mithun, the Garud, etc. All these are present. So according to him, he did not see any outside influence in Kashmiri temples. All right. So the arrangement in Kashmiri monuments, I would say, is very, very regional. All right. And applies to both Buddhist and Brahminical monuments. All right. So needless to say, again, I would say for the sake of repetition, governed by the regional and the climatic conditions of the period. All right. And the region rather, not period. Yeah. Okay. So we are looking at Marthan Sun Temple, totally in a very, very dilapidated form today. In fact, this is also not a very latest picture. So if you go today, you will not find this much also. But very, very huge, built in the almost middle of the 8th century, right? We came from Gupta temple. So this is the next temple I want to talk about. Very, very large, almost 220 feet by, 140 feet courtyard, very, very large courtyard. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. And of course, all the different elements of the temple we will see here, the sanctum, the antaral, mandap. It is it is approached by a very, very imposing flight of steps that you can see here. So very high Jagati, or the platform. And we will see some details also. So in fact, there are two levels of the platform. You can see this is the first level and this is the second level here. And in the lower level, the lower platform, you see smaller niches, which probably had housed, divinities all around. And this larger platform, or the higher platform, has bigger niches for housing of the divinities. And then this is where the actual temple stands. And these are the Adhishtan or the Vedibandh moldings we have here. And of course, the main temple, which is approached by the Mukh Mandapa. So the two side chambers also, which were attached to this, are also typical of mainly Kashmir temples also. And in some of the temples from the plains also we find this feature, but mainly in Kashmir temples. Okay. So this is, of course, the ground plan we have of Kashmir temple. If you look at this, very, very imposing gateway. In fact, I would say the dimensions of the gateway, the entrance, is almost as high as the temple itself. So this is one thing that probably we find in the later Dravidian temples, where we have the very, very high gopuras, right, as the entrances. And similarly, this cloistered veranda, with these minor cells that we have, this also has been adapted in the later Dravidian temples. Most of the temples later on, we will find that you have this peristylar veranda here, and also the very high gopura also. And very elevated shrine in the center, we saw very, very high. And it is this, this veranda is, of course, approached by this rows of columns that we have here, and they'll have multiple kinds of designs on them. All right. Then, of course, you have these 4 shrines, subsidiary shrines here. Of course, the position of these shrines are not as exact as we saw in, say, in the Devgarh temple, the Panchayatan temple, because probably at this time, the architecture in the Kashmir region was still evolving, and some of these features were incorporated, that were still kind of, I would say, little tentative, right? So the distinctive ornaments and forms of niches, pillars, and pilasters are kind of hybrid types. As we said, they are also have a lot of Gandharan influence in that. The pent roof, of course, I spoke about. Simple, it looks like the Hellenistic or the Greek pediment that we so suggest. In fact, the reproduction of the wooden roof of Kashmiri dwelling houses or the domestic houses. Okay. And the most important part, the water body or the kunda, all right, which is almost a very, very essential feature of sun temples, right? So on excavation of this temple, we have found many, many large earthen pots that were recovered from the paved courtyard, probably meant for storage of grains, etc., etc. In fact, in Avanti Swami temple also, similar feature was noticed. So the gateway, of course, is centered in we are approaching the main temple here. And these are the two, the transepts that I showed, which they're part of the mandap. This is the antaral or the vestibule, and this is the main mandap here. And these are the big, niches that you have on the 3 sides. Yeah, though three tirtha. All right, so three Bhadra, we can call it. And this is, of course, the peristylar colonnade that we have all around the temple here, right? So, okay. So the water body, or there are different names that we give that body, the Pushkarni or the Kunda. They are the intrinsic part of some of the not only sun temples, but also quite a lot of Hindu temples also. And I explained to you, it was first basically to physically for cleansing of one's body, ablution, and also that we are ready to be cleansed from inside when we approach the Garbhagriha and when we are standing in front of the main deity, right? So, in fact, the very purpose of the river goddesses, the Ganga Yamuna also, I said, is probably because of this reason only. So there are quite a few sun temples we have in India: Martan Sun Temple in Kashmir, Oshia Sun Temple, Rajasthan, Katramal in Uttaranchal area, Almora, Modhera Sun Temple, Gujarat, Konark Sun Temple in Orissa. Okay. So what is so typical about having a water body in a sun temple? So we all know we offer arghya, है ना? We offer like this, offering water to the sun deity early in the morning. All right. So according to Garud Puran, it is said that there are 30 crore demons, which are actually called the Mandehas, are actually orbiting the path of the sun, trying to swallow it at dawn and at the time of dusk. All right. So with the water that we offer to the sun with folded hands like this, and when we chant Gayatri Mantra, so the water acts as a prism, and it kind of fragments the sun rays, into 7 colors. And the chanting of the mantra, along with the splitting of the light, the sunlight, the water actually looks like a, actually the water gets charged, all right, with the combination of these two, and acts like a weapon in vanquishing those demons. And when the person is actually offering this water and he looks through the stream of this, flowing water, the dispensed light which emerges, it enters the body and kind of balances the 7 colors or the 7 chakras or the energy centers within the body. So in that sense, Mandehas are nothing but the mind and body, all right, of which actually cloud the sun and the, Atma within you, right? And it is the sadhana and the prayers which are needed to still them. So all those different chakras, in fact, we have already spoken about. So once they get energized, then that's how we can get rid of the demons which are present inside. So in that sense, the spiritual sense, I would say, the argh that we offer is a reminder to us of the Brahman within us, right? Or the Brahma within us, which is honored with the offering of the mantra and the water. I just thought some trivia, because everybody asks me as to why do we have a water body in every sun temple. Yeah. Okay. So the temple mainly is built of large limestone ashlars. Ashlar, when I say, it means that the walls and the pillars, and everything is faced with this particular stone. All right. And of course, one of the most imposing monuments of Kashmir, I would say that, reflecting also the personality of its builder, the great royal builder, Lalitaditya Muktapid, right? It is, as I said, it was an initial project of the king, and it still suffered from some of the certain hesitancy, as I spoke about the not exact position of the subsidiary shrines, and some kind of inaptness, as is it is revealed when we look at these 2 side chambers also that you are seeing, which kind of we don't find in any of the Nagar or Dravidian temples, mostly these 2 annexes that we have, right? So in fact, it is construed rather, these 2 chambers on the side, flanking both sides of the Mukh Mandap or the Mandap here, probably have, must have had images of the 2 consorts of Surya. Okay. So now, as we are approaching the temple, I showed you this is the lower platform and this is the higher, the 2 Jagatis that we have. So here we have, of course, the bigger niches flanked by these pilasters. And these are called the fluted columns. Normally, in Nagar temples and in Dravidian temples also, the temples are not fluted, means, how will I say, dhariyan bani hui rehti hain in pillars pe ya pilasters pe, which is again a typical Greek, element that has been borrowed here in this particular temple, Greek or Gandharan, whatever you. And you can clearly see the divinities which are placed here inside the niches here. So the upper tier normally shows larger niches and Brahminical deities including Surya, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Parvati, Ganga, Yamuna, Dikpals. And the lower tiers normally has, smaller niches harboring mostly secular figures like, say, the dancers, commoners, musicians, etc., etc. Okay. Okay, so here you can very clearly see, you can see Surya in the center. So the typical iconography of Surya will be, he's holding, two lotus, fully blown lotuses in his hands. Yeah, here you can see very clearly here, right? And you can see he is actually riding a horse here rather than riding in a chariot. Charioteer being the Aruna here. All right. And this kind of a crown also is very typical of Surya. Okay. So this is how you can easily recognize him. So these are all the three solar divinities that we are seeing in three different niches here. Okay. Okay. So the sanctum interior, in fact, the sanctum or the Garbhagriha we call, is almost bare and featureless in contrast to its exterior that we just saw, which together, in fact, the Antaral, there are few images that we have inside the inside Antaral or the Mukhmandap, but very, very, highly distorted and damaged images are there. Okay. So, in fact, the exterior and the interior walls of the gateway are treated like the mandap facade with niched figures rising from the paneled friezes showing Gis, Ganas, Vidyadharas or Gandharvas, etc. Okay. So, in fact, the roof of all the constituent chambers are lost, but from the early, images or the photographs, we have some clue as to it had that kind of a pedimented roof. All right. And also the interior of the mandap is adorned with the lower as well as the upper set of similar niches that we saw on the Jagati here, right here, this one. So similar niches we find inside also. And in fact, these two structured, on the side, these two chambers, in fact, also probably had some kind of images here. So, as I said, there was this is colonnaded corridor all along, and then there were these minor cells or the smaller temples which were housed here, and each are actually have the entrance of the trefoil arch, and the similar trefoil arch you would see here also in all the entrances. Yeah, all the niches also probably here. See, if you can see here, they are always capped by this trefoil arch, which becomes the main motif, right? And here, of course, you have these gabled roof above the trefoil arch, again imitating the structure of the main temple. All right. And probably at some time, some point rather, they must have all contained images. In fact, some of them still have the pedestals which were used for the stationing of those images. Yeah. And here you can see a very beautiful trefoil arch that I wanted to show you so that nobody, misunderstands as to what I mean by the trefoil arch. So the main entrance of the temple that can be, seen from the innermost shrine. So we are standing inside the temple and looking outside, which is actually west facing. So it is interesting to note that most of the sun temples you will find west facing, okay, towards the direction of the setting sun. Okay. This is, of course, the northern colonnade with base of side temple here. This is one of the subsidiary shrines that we saw, the base of which is still present in the foreground. These are some more shrines that we see in the peripheral colonnade. This is, of course, the imposing entrance and some of the columns, right, that we can see here in the corridor of the side. So here, I think you can see very clearly, I think I have an image also of the fluted column. Yeah. So this is, of course, the water body, and I have already explained to you, or the kund at the basement of the, here, you can see the main kund. And these are the basements of some of the subsidiary shrines. The two of them, two are, of course, at the back. Okay. Yeah, here you can kind of get an overview of the, and these are, of course, all the fragments, the, parts of the temple that are still lying around. Here you can see some of the column shafts are there, the bases are there, etc., etc. Okay, some more. So this is inside the mandap that we have gone here, this one, of course, north wall, and you have Vishnu in the niches. So sometimes you will also have a composite, Satyanarayan or Surya Narayan. So that's the composite form of Vishnu and Surya, right? So you will often find a lot of Vishnu images also in Surya temples. And of course, this is a pedestal that you have in Linga base, right, in the eastern colonnade, in one of those minor shrines. So this is, of course, the northern colonnade with small shrines you can see here. And so this is Surya at the entrance hall, you can clearly see. And see the double pediments that you see. This again is a very typical feature of Kashmiri temple. And sometimes this upper part may get truncated like this, or sometimes the lower part also, like here it would end sometimes, yeah. And all the niches are capped with this trefoil arch here, right? These are some more sculptures from the, here. Shankaracharya and Krishna carvings on the backside of the temple we have here. And this is the inscription in Sharda script, right? Sharda was one script which was very, very prevalent in this area. And the language is, of course, Sanskrit, right? And these are some of the, like, this is what I meant by fluted columns. So there are these lines you will get, right? It is not a smooth surface that we, saw in earlier temples, but this is called fluting. And this is a typical Greek or Gandharan feature that we encountered. And these are the different Vedibandh moldings that we have in this temple. And I had spoken about these Vedibandh or Adhishtan moldings earlier, the Khura, Kumbha, Kalash, Antarpat, and the Kapot Palli. So the different combinations of these basic moldings that we spoke about in our last session, you will find in different structures, right? Okay. Now we will talk about the next temple, Avanti Swami temple, named after the king, Avanti Varman. Though it is, and much little later, that was middle of 8th century, it's almost after 100 years that we get to see this temple, though much little smaller than the Marthan temple. Ananta Swami temple is much more ornate in that sense and dedicated to Vishnu. And there is another temple, Anantishwara, which is dedicated to Shiva. Okay. So when you look at the plan of the temple, you will feel it is almost the same as the Marthan Sun temple that we saw. Of course, located at Avantipur, which was founded by Avanti Varman rather. So, of course, the central shrine here facing west. So, single chambered. Here you don't have that tentativeness about the, those two side chambers that we saw earlier, right? And this is, of course, the inside, and you get down from here and then again climb with this, many steps are there and you get into the temple here. These are some of the subsidiary shrines that you have here. Okay. So, of course, there are, similarly, you find those niches here also, but some of the very beautiful sculptures that have come down to us, one is that of Kamdeva seated in with all his, regalia, and with his consorts also, 2 consorts. And in fact, some of the sculptures also represent the king himself. So, which actually in later temples in South India, we will encounter many times, where the king also has been, has been given the same status to that of the deity. And sometimes the temples also are called by the name of the king, like the Choleshwara, or here we have the, Avanteshwara temple. No, totally, almost attaching the king's, name to the very name of the temple. Okay. So similar, the open courtyard you have in the center. These are the basements of the subsidiary shrines, and these are the colonnaded veranda that you have, which are actually leading you to the subsidiary shrines here. Now, the most important thing I want you to note is the temple is buried underground here, right? For centuries, until the excavation happened in the 18th century by the Britishers, right? So if look at this is where the ground level is today. Yeah. So how below the ground you can see the temple here, which actually was, could be seen only after the excavation, right? So this is of course, the peristyle, consists of 69 miniature shrines, each with the pedimented trefoil arch that you can see here, right? And entrance rising above the pillar. These are the pilasters, which are the engaged pillars, as I've been talking about. And they, in fact, they are all fluted columns and beaded grooves, and, vertical rows of auspicious pots also, like the kalash we spoke about, you will mostly find on these pillars or the pilasters. Okay. So differently carved columns you can see here, very, very different. And here, what you're seeing is the gateway or the outer porch, west face, north side. And you see sculptures here, and we'll see some detailing of these sculptures also. So part view of the peristyle, again, I'm trying to show you. And here, very interestingly, you find Garud. This is a loose pranal. Pranal is the exit point of all the ablution and the unguents that we pour on the deity inside the Garbhagriha. So it needs to have an outlet, right? Otherwise, the whole Garbhagriha will get flooded, especially in the Shiva temple. So this particular thing, which actually is attached to the outer wall of the Garbhagriha, is called the pranala. All right. So at the mouth of this pranal, you will find different kinds of motifs in different temples. Sometimes you will have a Naga figure or a dancer, or in a Shiva temple, you will sometimes have a Nandi also here. So here, typically, we have a Garuda figure. So we can recognize this figure by the pointed nose. That's the iconography I told you about, how Garuda is represented in Indian architecture, right? So this is the detail I'm showing you, gateway of the outer porch that I showed. So here you can clearly see. So this is the images. This is the lower one. This is the upper one. And here at the entrance, you can see the river goddess Ganga here. This is the detail I'm trying to show here in a Tribhanga stance here. Yeah, and she's also holding water pot here. The vegetation is there at the top, and you can clearly make out the crocodile scales here at the base. Yeah. So this is the inner panel on the left, the stairs to the main shrine. So here on the left side. So this is the detail of this particular sculpture or the frieze. And what is it showing? It is showing the king and the prince worshipping with their retinue. So they have come to worship the sun god. Yeah. And this is the pilaster that I have been talking about. And it has these various different motifs. The geese motif is there, the Gana figures, etc., etc. Okay. Then this is, of course, again on another, entrance. You have the royal family, which is depicting themselves on the stairs leading up to the main shrine. So this image is, of course, the detail of this particular one. And this is the one on the other side. So here you can see some of the kings, queens also, which who are accompanying him, right? So he has come to worship the sun god with all his, retinue here. So, in fact, in later temples, you will also find, different entrances which were built for the royalties. And those entrances were only used by the royalties or the nobilities when they came to, do the darshan or when they came to pay their prayers. Okay. So some of these sculptures that we have from Kashmir region are, of course, from Avantipura. They exhibit, in fact, both variety in iconographic types, and also they are relatively have a very wide range of stylistic conventions also, right? So I have already spoken about this particular aspect of Vishnu as per the Pancharatra Agam, the Vaishnav Agam, Vasudev, the four vyuhas we spoke about the Vaikunt Vishnu, no? The Vasudev, the front, the Saumya, part, the Krishna, or the Samkarshan, the Balram, the Pradyuman, and the Anirudh, the four vyuhas, the manifestation of Vishnu in this form. So, in fact, this cult was centered around, of course, the Vaikunt Chaturmukhi or Chaturmurti, which was developed in Kashmir in around 8th to 12th centuries. All right, when the deity also enjoyed a lot of royal patronage in the region. In fact, when we talk about Lakshman Temple at Khajuraho, it clearly says that the main deity which was there originally in that temple was brought from the region of Himachal, in fact. So this was actually the iconography of making Vishnu that time, and in this Chaturviha avatar. All right. So it kind of suggests that his worship in the Chandela region in kingdom in central India was also prevalent in the 10th century. Okay. So here you can clearly see Chaturmukh. Of course, the backside you cannot see of the Kapila or the Anirudh part of it, the fourth one. But here you can see the boar, the lion, the Saumya face. And these two I spoke about earlier, the two Ayudhas, right? So here you can see the Gada Devi also, you can see here. See, she's holding a Gada. So this is the personification, right? So you have the Shankh here, the Chakra here, the Gada Devi here, and probably the lotus is shown again in the female form. And here this lady is also holding a lotus bud in her hand. And of course, the Vajanti Mal of the typical of Vishnu's iconography. You can see the Kirit Mukut on. And this kind of headgear is also again very close to what you see Surya wearing. All right. So here still they have not shown the Kirit Mukut that the Vishnu sculptures normally are shown. Right. Here on the lintel, as I had spoken earlier, on the lintel or the lalat, normally you will also find representation of Navgrahas, because we say that this is the celestial region, right? The upper region as we are entering the temple. So mostly these celestial bodies will occupy this particular place. Okay. And this is, of course, a column base that you can see, a typical ribbed column base you can see here. Okay. And this is a Kinnara figure. Kinnar is, today we know Kinnars in a very, very different, we attach a very different meaning to it. But in Indian texts, Kinnars are the ones which have a composite body, that of a, human and some kind of a bird. All right. And they are also kind of considered to be demigods, right? And you will find a lot of these Kinnar figures in the paintings of Ajanta, if you have, visited the caves at any time. So then now we look at another temple, Pandrithan Shiva temple, mid 10th century AD. Okay. So typical Famsana, this kind of a roof this triangular roof that we have, it's called the Famsana. All right, in the Indian architectural terms, the ancient Vastu Shastra terms. So this is what I meant when I said it has the truncated top here, right? So it has two tiers, the superstructure, and this here it is truncated. And of course, this is the complete gable or the pediment. Again, the entrance is opened by the trefoil arch here. Okay. And what you are seeing here is all around is water. And there is this elephant frieze here at the base. And the lower part of the temple is almost, submerged in the water. Okay. So inside this particular niche here, the niche which is there is a figure of Lakulish. All right. So of course the entire architecture is dictated by the climatic conditions, the severe cold conditions. And in fact, inside today, if you go, there is a very modern Shivlinga of today. So the Lakulish figure has also survived within the, in fact, earlier, some British historians said that probably this temple was dedicated to Vishnu because Meru Varman was the, king who had, built some other Vishnu temples also. So, but after seeing the Lakulish in this particular niche here, it was ascertained that the temple belonged to Shaivite philosophy. In fact, the one attribute of the Lakulish is he holds a staff or the lakuti, the danda that we call, or a club or a stick. He was actually a very, very prominent Shaivite revivalist. In fact, so much, or rather reformist and preceptor, a teacher of the doctrine of the Pashupata sect. In fact, one of the oldest sects of Shaivism in the 2nd century AD. So, as I spoke about the Shaiv Nayanamars or the Alvars in South India, even this particular saint or Lakulish also has been attributed the same status that of a deity, and on many temples you will find the images of Lakulish at par with the other deities or Shivas. Okay. So this, of course, is now you can see the other side of the temple also. So by looking at this, you can clearly see the two sides of it. But if we, explore more of this temple, we will know it is the Sarvotbhadra temple. Sarvotbhadra means exactly the same entrances it has on all the four sides. Okay. Probably, yeah. Okay. And it's a very, very small temple, almost just 18 feet square, and from internally and almost 11 feet, externally. So that's just the thickness of the wall. And inside a tank, which was, which was fed by a natural fountain. Okay. But the most interesting part is it is in excellent state of preservation. And this is the Gajapita that I wanted to show you that we saw in the last slide. Very slightly you could see here emerging from the water here. And all this part, the Adhishtan moldings are all submerged in the water, the molded platform that we have. Okay. So, yeah. So the shrine is three tirtha. So three, we have big niches, almost looking like three doors. And that's why we said, but at the same time, you can go around the temple here easily. So, of course, Nirandhar Prasad, because there is no internal circumambulation here, you can go around this. And the platform is cut into the same shape as that of the plan of the temple, the niches that you have here. The central niches are really very, very big. And they show much, much greater projection, which allows for constant play of light and shade, I would say that. Okay. And of course, these pilasters that you see, they all have, molded platforms here. These moldings, the Adhishtan moldings you have at the base with the trefoil arch. And here you can see the image of the Lakulisha very, very clearly. And the very ceiling of the temple is very interesting. It consists of three intersecting squares here. This is one, and this is two, and then this is the third one. And of course, the central soffit is the underside of the any arch or the wall, or the ceiling rather, not wall, sorry, ceiling. So this is the soffit here. You see this fully blown lotus here in the center. And in these residual triangles that you get from the intersection of these squares, you have beautiful flying, Vidyadharas holding the large garlands in their house, pair of Vidyadharas rather you will have. Here you have one, and then here you have two, right? And in the center also you will have here. Okay. So in fact, these are very, very animated Vidyadharas. And these denticles, I told you earlier also, they are almost, reminding you of the older wooden architecture that was so prevalent in this particular area. Yeah. In fact, we will see similar ceilings in other hill temples also. So this is, of course, the Lakshana Devi temple dedicated to Mahishasur-Mardini in Bharmor in Himachal Pradesh. Okay. So, of course, this is the picture which was taken in 1903, so which is showing you the entrance of the Brahmor temple. So here you, very, very detailed, here you have Vishnu with Garud here in the center, yeah, multi-armed Vishnu rather. And this is almost Gupta style Dwarshakhas that we spoke about in our last lecture. Then these are some of the inscription. It talks about the lineage of the King Burman, King Meru Varman rather, and finally about the religious merit that he will earn by making of this particular temple. So, of course, the language is Sanskrit here, no, needless to say. Then this is, of course, the Mukh Mandapa and the sanctum door that you can see. So originally the temple was made of wood, all right, and it is only now we have a very, very badly done plastering and some kind of cement work has been done on these temples. Okay, so this is the intricate wooden doorway carving that we get here very, very clearly, right? Very beautiful that you can see here. So inside the Garbhagriha, in fact, there is a huge bronze image of Mahishasur-Mardini, right? And in fact, from some of the inscriptions that we have got from this temple, it is dated to 700 CE. Okay. So a very similar lantern. This particular style of ceiling is called the lantern ceiling. As we all know, lantern, or what do you call it? There is another name. During Diwali time, I mean, don't we get something like this, when we put in front of our houses? So this particular kind of ceiling is called a lantern kind of ceiling, wooden lantern ceiling this is, okay, which we saw in Shiva temple also earlier. And look at the intricate carving which is done in wood here. Then this is the Surya temple at Paleti with again the Thamsana superstructure, but with Amlaka on top. So in later temples, we will find this kind of structure that we have, right? This is actually not a superstructure for the Garbhagriha. Normally, you will find all the adjoining mandapas. They will have this kind of a superstructure, and they will normally have a kalash on top. But here, interestingly, there is an amlaka which is placed on top. And this is the Shukanasi, the antral, the superstructure of the antral or the vestibule, where you will find Surya riding on a chariot. All right. And this is another Some more sculptures from this temple. This is Surya's icon you have with two attending figures here, Dandin and Pingal. And again, you will find Surya wearing those shoes here, right? And these are all stitched garments. Normally, you will find Indian deities, the torso is, almost bare most of the time. They do not wear these stitched clothes on the upper, chest. But when it comes to Surya's iconography, you will normally find him wearing these Udditya Vesh, or the Northwest frontiers dressing. Okay. So icon of the, this female deity is probably Shakti in her benevolent form, I would say, because this is a temple dedicated to Mahishasur-Mardini. Okay. Then we have Lakhmandan temple, okay, in the region of Dehradun district in Uttarakhand. Okay. So the temple, of course, is dedicated to Shiva and very, very popular among the Shaktism, also Shakti cult. Oh, actually, they also believe that visit to this particular temple shrine will end all their misfortunes. So the Lakh Mandal gets its name from two words. Lakh means many, yeah, Lakh, and mandals meaning the temples or the lingams. So because of the many temples which are present, and plenty of artistic works were found in the excavation of this particular temple by ASI. And so this is a typical North Indian Nagar Shikhar that you have, the Latina Shikhar or the Rekha Shikhar. This is not a Shekhri Shikhar where you have those minor Shikhars, comprising the entire Shikhar, and then you have the main Mool Manjari running in the center. So this is a typical Latina Rekha Shikhar from Nagar temple category you have. And this is the Garbhagriha niche that you can clearly see is being entered through Antaral here. And this is the Mukha Mandapa that you can see slowly. Of course, the top portion has been reconstructed here. This is not the original one. You have some remnants of the old mandap here in the center. This is, of course, some of the other view of the temple. And here, these two sculptures or the icons are, there are different interpretations to this. Some call them Danav and Manav, which are located outside, just beside the main shrine, which is there. And in fact, these statues these icons can also be the Dwarpalas or the doormen. And some people believe that these are also the Pandava brothers, Arjun and Bhim. As I said, we are all, most of the time we are trying to attach some, connection with the Pandava brothers or Mahabharata. So this is also one of those stories. And they also resemble the two Pratiharas of Vishnu, Jay and Vijay, the doormen. Yeah. And in fact, the Manav and Danav, there is a story that when someone was dying or had just died, an appearance in front of these, icons returns them briefly to life before finally expiring. So the power of Manav is to, it kept the person alive, and Danav took the person's soul to Lord Vishnu's abode.
मैम आप म्यूट हो गए हैं, अनम्यूट कीजिएगा। आप म्यूट हो गए हैं, आप म्यूट हो गए हैं। पवन जी, आप म्यूट हो गए।
Yeah, sorry. I think it was just press of some button. Yeah. Okay, so such is the story of these two sculptures in front of the temple. Then we have a very beautifully, highly developed temple, which was built in the 13th century Baijnath temple in Himachal Pradesh. Palampur in Himachal Pradesh. Some of you may have visited. Very, very highly ornamented. And in fact, it has quite a few of the features of a developed Nagar temple that I can say, yes. Of course, dedicated to Shiva. Okay, and the city of Baijnath, in fact, is named after the temple's name and dedicated to Lord Shiva as Vaidyanath. Okay, so yeah. So in fact, there were these two local merchants who were responsible for the making of this, Ahuka and Manyuk. And Vaidyanath is the lord of the physicians. Okay, and the inner structure, in fact, sanctum houses a Shiva Lingam, which is very modern, which is not the original. But there are many, many images that you can see here, highly ornate, decorated temple that you have here. These are some of the sub-shrines that you have on the sides. The Vahan Mandap, Nandi, you can see here facing the main deity inside. And you can see the huge Amlaka, the Kalash, the Stupi here. And the red flag on any temple, I think you all should know this. Whenever there is a red temple, it means that the temple is in worship. It's an active temple. Okay. So that's how you can distinguish between a temple which is just kind of, it has archaeological importance, or if you can see, the red flag, then you can also go inside and, pay your prayers there, right? This is, of course, the detail of the same temple here. So this is what I meant. So this is the same kind of superstructure we saw in the earlier temple, but it was on the, it was on the Garbhagriha. So here I told you in the more developed Nagar temple, you will have this kind of structure on the mandap roof, right? So this is what you are seeing here, which is crowned by a kalash against the amlaka that we saw in the last slide. Okay. So this is again the typical Rekha Deol. The wall you can see is, it has three projections here. You can see the middle one, the second one, and the third one. So in that sense, now we can call this a Pancharatha temple, because every side, all the three sides, other than the main entrance, you have 5 projections of the wall of the Garbhagriha. And you have these 5 niches here, which is, which are used for housing the deities or the divinities here. And these are actually also modeled on the basis of the, temple architecture. So here you can almost see a miniature temple in the making, a huge amlaka on top and a stupi or a kalash here. So this is the main Bhadra, this is Pratibhadra, and these two are called the Karnas. Karna means the corners. So each corner will have 2 niches, because where 2 walls are meeting, so one will belong to this side of the wall, one will be of this side of the wall. So here you can clearly see one is this one and one is this one, which is actually hidden behind this some kind of a plant which is there in front. Yeah, so these are the 2 Karna niches, or the Karnarathikas, or the Karnabhadras. These are the different names that you can call them by. Okay. So there are 2 very, very long inscriptions that we have found, which have been engraved on a stone slab in the main hall. Okay. So, of course, all written in Sanskrit using Sharda script, which was prevalent at that time, and also the Pahari language, which is Takri script. So these both scripts that we find here. Okay. So they give us details about the construction of the temple by these merchants that I spoke about. And yeah. So, and the inscriptions also praise about the Lord Shiva, name of the current ruler king, Jai Chandra, list of the names of the architects and the names of the donor merchants at the time of constructions. Okay. So another inscription names, in fact, the Kangra district's old name also, which was the Nagarkot. Okay, that was the old name in which this temple was built. So this is, of course, inside the Garbhagriha, very, very modern. All the marble flooring and these dados which are made, they are all very, very modern. But some of these sculptures that you see behind, they are, in fact, they come from the original temple which was present. Okay. So there are different images, Lord, Harihara, Ganesh, Vishnu, Kalyan Sundar Murti, etc. you will find in this temple. Then this is the Katarmal or the Katramal Sun Temple in Almora. Okay. So magnificent Surya temple, again also known as the Bada Aditya or the Bura Aditya or Vrihad Aditya. Vrihad say, I think this is where the name Bada or the Bura is coming from. Okay. So the idols of Shiva, Parvati, Lakshmi Narayana are also present in this particular temple. In fact, the main building faces the east in such a way that the first rays of the sun fall inside the Shiva Lingam. Okay. So it is the Shiva, you can see there are, group of temples that you have here. Because I said normally the sun temple will be facing the west. So when I'm talking about this temple, this is the Shiva temple, which is facing east. Okay. And of course, beautiful pillar carvings you will get in this particular temple. So the very name of the temple is because it was built by the Katyuri king. Okay, that's why his name was Katramal or Katarmalla, however that you want to pronounce it, in the 9th century. Okay, and that's how. And later, of course, more and more subsidiary shrines and the temples were kept getting added to this particular temple. So here you again get this. This is, of course, a restructured, Mukh Mandap, I can call it. This is the Antaral. This is the big Shuka Nasi you have on Antaral here. And these are the different sections or the projections of the Garbhagriha wall that you find here. Okay. And this is, of course, the plan of this Bada Aditya temple. Very simple. And here you can see the Triratha wall again, very, very clearly. It's divided into 3 parts, 1, 2, 3. You can see these 3 minor niches. So this temple will be called the Triratha. Okay, so because of the 3 projections. I'm again and again emphasizing on this because I don't want anybody to get any, wrong meaning about these different terms that I'm using. So the seated image of Surya, which was found in this complex, and of course, right now it is part of one of the museums here. And again, I want you to see, notice the costume or the dressing of Surya here. The 2 full-blown lotuses here, the 2 consorts of Surya here. You can see the 2 attending figures and the 7 horses here. Surya rides the chariot driven by 7 horses, which are, equal to the 7 days of the moon, 7 rays of the sun, etc., etc. And the charioteer, Arun, also you can see here in the center here. Okay. So the entire temple, in fact, is surrounded by 44 smaller, shrines. Okay. Around the main idol of Surya, which is there in the center. So interestingly, the wooden, the carved wooden doors and panels from this temple were transported or brought to National Museum in Delhi because there was, a theft of an idol of 10th century, which was stolen from this particular temple here. So this is the beautiful, this is the beautiful door panel, which is there in the National Museum gallery, you can see today. And these are some of the different wooden carvings that you have on these wooden door panels here. Different deities you can see here. Okay. Then we will see some other groups of Jageshwar temple, Almora here. So, of course, there are many different temples: Chandi temple, Jageshwar, Kuber temple, Mrityunjay temple, Nanda Devi, or Navgraha temple, etc., etc. It is also important for me to point out that in the hill area, especially Himachal or Uttarakhand or Uttaranchal, Devi worship has been very, very prevalent. In fact, most of the Shakti Pithas we find in this region where different parts of the Devi fell and, a temple sprung up in that place also, right? So this is, of course, the plan of the entire Jageshwar group of temples. So it predominantly actually illustrates North Indian Nagar style of architecture, with a very few exceptions that show also the South and Central Indian style designs. Okay, and many are dedicated to different deities: Shiva, Vishnu, etc. So the entire structure, I would say, 7 to 12 centuries. Yeah. Okay. So very, very simple square plan it will have. Sorry, I think, yeah. This is, of course, the detail of the different temples here that we see. So this, again, you have that Famsana ceiling on the Garbhagriha, which is actually not a typical Rekha Deol or the Latina style of Nagar Shikhar, and of course topped by an Amlakha here. Okay, so that is itself an anomaly here that I can say. Here again, you can see the same kind of structure. Whereas this is a typical Latina, Nagar style structure that we have here, topped by an Amlakha here. Okay. And interestingly here in this, Gavaksha or the Chandrashala, you have the figure of Nataraj here. So definitely dedicated to Shiva, this particular shrine. Okay, so now I wanted you to show, and here again you have Lakulish here. So this is, I think, in that Pandrathan temple, it was not so very clear. Here, Lakulish on this center clearly indicates that the temple is dedicated to Shiva here, right? And this particular temple is dedicated to Shakti or Devi. So this is another kind of superstructure. You have the barrel vaulted roof, or the it's called also the Vallabhi roof, right? And this particular structure you will normally find on the Shakti temples or the Devi temples. In fact, there's a very beautiful temple in Orissa, and in fact, lot of temples here in this particular region, they are precursor to the very, very highly developed Naga temples that we get in Khajuraho or Kalinga temples, or in Rajasthan also, for that matter. Okay, so I think with this, I'm going to conclude today's session. Yeah, and I'm going to stop share. Yeah. I'm sorry. I think if I exceed time all that, in every session, because I try to compress it as much as I can, but somehow I'm not able to. It always exceeds the time limit of 1 hour, 15 minutes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
धन्यवाद आपको बहुत बहुत। आपने कश्मीर और हिमाचल प्रदेश आदि प्रदेश में जो स्थापत्य कला और प्राचीन मंदिर उपलब्ध होते हैं उसके विषय में बहुत ही सुंदर प्रकाश डाला है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अब थोड़ा समय हमारे पास है, हम 1 या 2 प्रश्न ले सकते हैं।
Sure, yeah. Let me see.
प्रश्न जो आए हैं उसमें से एक प्रश्न लीजिए, और एक लाइव किसी को पूछना है तो हैंड रेज।
जरूर से, डेफिनेटली।
पहले आप जो प्रश्न आए उसमें से एक प्रश्न ले लीजिए, और बाद में हम देखेंगे कोई प्रश्न आपको ऑनलाइन पूछना आते हैं।
So one question is, are the temples dedicated to goddess are having rectangular plan for Garbhagriha? Sometimes yes, and most of the time no. It is, mainly the superstructure which is built in that barrel vaulted form rather than that Rekha Deol or the Shekri Shikhar or the Pidha Deol, rather. Okay, so not all the time. But we will talk about this Bhimratha in the Mahabali group of temples where even the lower structure is in the rectangular shape. Yeah, okay. And also, sometimes the shape of the Garbhagriha or the adjoining mandapas, they also are, they yield to the availability of the space, right? How much space is available for the making of the temple, and how well these, the different parts of the temple can be ascribed to different, places in that particular given space, right? So sometimes in place of square Garbhagriha, you may end up, getting a rectangular also Garbhagriha. Okay. But yeah, in Shakti shrines, sometimes you will have rectangular also. Yeah.
शिफाली जौहर जो हैंड रेज किया है आप
जी जी, please. Yes. You are muted. Can you please unmute yourself? We can't hear you. Please unmute.
વ્યોમ બધાને અનમ્યુટ થઈ શકે એવી સુવિધા કરી આપને. હા આપ.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Good
Can you-
evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's like so, it's so informative, so interesting. Your
Thank you,
lectures.
thank you, thank you.
Ma'am,
That
it's
serves my purpose, yes. Yeah.
yeah, ma'am, and it seems like it should never end. You should continue, and we should, well, like at times we feel like interrupting your and having a interactive sessions, more of that.
Sure.
Ma'am, I have visited Chamba and all few of the temples, and I found the same tri faces on that Chamba temples and similar faces here also. Is it that
Yeah.
some kind of a symbol of some dynasty or something like that?
Which faces are you talking about?
You showed in your slide also. The
Okay.
one you showed, the one you showed and described it, it had an above that a circular में 3 faces दिखाए हुए थे. It is a trinity, a Shiva temple.
Yeah. So the 3 aspects of Shiva also it can be, or the other Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh also. But sometimes you know, inside those, Gavakshas also, you will find these different faces. Yeah.
But ma'am, this is in all of the Chamba temples. Chamba
All
and
Chamba temples will have, in fact, most of the Shiva temples will have this particular feature. Yes,
Okay.
I can say that. Yeah.
And ma'am, in Bajnath Mandir, I found a side में एक झरोका सा है. अभी
हाँ.
भी यहाँ पे भी था. तो
Yeah.
वो अलग से कैसे है? मतलब what is the significance? Because वो होता नहीं है. एक अलग से उन्होंने projection नहीं.
As I said, some of the elements in these temples were not original. And as the time passes, more and more additions are done by the later kings or by, later donors. And those new structures are, you try to accommodate those new structures with the original temple. Sometimes they fit well, sometimes, they do not synchronize as well. Yeah, with the original structure of the temple. Yeah.
Questions are endless. एक और मेरी थी क्यूरियोसिटी, जो आपने दिखाया कश्मीर का जो सन टेम्पल था, उसके साइड में जो चैम्बर्स थे, वो यू टोल्ड इट्स 84 और
yeah, the 2 chambers. Are you talking about the main 2 transepts or the all around the boundary? Yeah. All
the
around the boundary. Yeah.
around the boundary they are 84.
Yes.
Do they have some significance? वो कुछ उसका मतलब है मैम 84 का, और it is वैसे ही?
So you can.
एक मिनट पवन जी, आपने 86 बोला था.
86. Okay. So I think definitely it must be having some relevance with the nakshatras and the different, constellations, etc. Yeah, definitely it has. Yeah.
Constellations 88 होते, मतलब शायद उसमें maybe 86.
No, so 86, and then sometimes you will have two adjoining with the, main entrance also. I showed you that imposing gateway of the Marthan Sun temple. And sometimes two, smaller shrines are attached to that, entrance also, because it starts from there like this, right?
Okay,
That's how it is.
88, that
Yeah.
may be sun and the constellations.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
थैंक यू। दिवी मिश्रा एक हैंड रेज किया था, अभी वो जुड़ी हुई हो तो वो प्रश्न पूछ सकती हैं।
नमस्कार सर। नमस्कार मैम।
नमस्ते।
आप अनम्यूट हो जाइए।
कि मैंने अनम्यूट कर दिया है।
जी बोलिए।
जी मेरा ये एक था कि आर्किटेक्चर में जैसे हम लोगों को रोमन आर्किटेक्चर के बारे में तो बहुत कुछ पढ़ाया जाता है, मगर इंडियन आर्किटेक्चर, इंडियन आइकोनोग्राफी एसेंशियली बेस बन नहीं पाता है। और हमारा आर्किटेक्चर जैसे सारा टेम्पल्स से रिलेटेड ही है बेसिकली। एंशिएंट इंडियन आर्किटेक्चर को अगर देखें तो मूल में जाके कहीं ना कहीं स्पिरिचुअलिटी ही मिलती है। तो वी नीड टू नो spirituality a bit, and then history, and then architecture, and then iconography, then only anything can make sense to it.
Absolutely. That's the reason, I devoted so much, time in my first lecture, second lecture, because unless and until you understand the spirituality or the philosophy behind making of a temple or making of a house, you just cannot understand, why it is how it is.
यस मैम, रोमन आर्किटेक्चर पे तो इतना ज्यादा काम हुआ है, बट इंडियन आर्किटेक्चर पे हम लोगों को मतलब बीइंग इन इंडिया वी नीड टू नो एंड वी हैव अ राइट टू नो। सो दैट इज नॉट डन, दैट सीम्स अनफेयर।
I think we have made a very humble beginning here.
Yes, yes ma'am, thank you so much. That's why these lectures are so very important.
Thank you.
Can you suggest any books so that we can...
I think there is a WhatsApp group here. I'm going to post a reading list. All right. General reading list that you can, go through for temple architecture or Indian temples. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you ma'am. Thank you.
जी
पवन जी, मेरा एक प्रश्न है कि कश्मीर में कहीं जैन मंदिरों का उल्लेख मिलता है कि नहीं, वो भारत?
So actually I don't have any clue about a Jain temple there. Of course Buddhist तो बहुत मिले हैं, क्योंकि during the time of Ashok there were a lot of emissaries who went all the way to Kashmir, and they built a lot of places there. But I haven't come across any Jain temple in Kashmir so far. Although I know of a Jain temple in Pakistan, yes. So in fact, the great grandson, I think, of Ashok, his name was, I think, Samprati. He was instrumental in, spreading a lot of Jainism on to this part of the world later. Yeah. But yeah.
जैन साहित्य में उल्लेख मिलते हैं कि जैन मंदिर थे।
बट हाँ, अभी एक्सटेंट टेम्पल कोई नहीं है अभी वहां पर, मतलब इन situ we do not find any Jain temple as such over there.
ओके। और कश्मीर की भाषा के बारे में आपने बताया था कि संस्कृत थी भाषा।
Absolutely, yeah.
इस रिसर्च हुआ है वो ये बताता है कि कश्मीर की ओरिजिनल लैंग्वेज प्राकृत थी।
प्राकृत, yeah, definitely. So actually Prakrit and Sanskrit are always, go hand in hand. Some places Sanskrit was more popular, or Sanskrit came from, so Prakrit ऐसा था, बोलचाल की भाषा थी उस समय की, है ना? So many texts were written in Prakrit earlier, right? Mostly all the Jain texts were all written in Prakrit, in fact. Much later, like the Bhaktamba Srot, जो फिर बाद में संस्कृत में लिखा गया. But otherwise, all the earlier texts were written in Prakrit, for that matter. Yeah.
Okay, now time बहुत हो गया है, और प्रश्न.
Can we ask something, please? There is one thing is like my question is there is also a sun temple was built in Pinmal, and it has been right now in ruins.
Sorry, come
So,
again.
there was a sun temple in Binmal which was known as Jagat Swami temple,
Okay.
and that has been ruined right now. But does it have any connection to the sun temples? Because on the whole line we see a lot of sun temples. And second thing is a request to the organizers to increase the number of participants, because what happens is when we join on a YouTube, we write a question and nobody is there to answer. So if the capacity of the group is increased, that would help us a lot to talk about.
जरूर आप
First time I'm joining from India. Usually I join the classes from US, and that time what happens is like we are not able to join. I just now traveled last night, so I just wanted to make sure on this.
हाँ, हम बढ़ाने के लिए कर रहे हैं, वो हो जाएगा. कुछ प्रॉब्लम.
ये 3 वीक हो गए, मेरा 3 क्लास मिस हो गया, इसलिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ.
वेरी सॉरी. कुछ टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम आ रही है. बहुत बार हमने जूम को भी कंप्लेन किया है, लेकिन वो भी कर नहीं पा रहे हैं. तो हम लोग नया कर नहीं सकते क्योंकि सबको इसी के लिंक दी हुई है.
I understand you.
फिर भी हम सोम मंगलवार तक कुछ रास्ता निकालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
तो हम समापन करते हैं. अगले
सर 1 मिनट में वगैरह लोड कर दे दीजिए व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप, क्योंकि इट्स ऑलरेडी टाइप्ड ओवर हियर, वी हैव टू लोड इन फोन.
ओके, कर देंगे. आज का ये
और यू कैन सेंड इन ईमेल, दैट वुड बी बेस्ट थिंग टू ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स.
ओके ओके. आज के इस व्याख्यान का समापन करते हैं हम. सभी जिज्ञासु प्रतिभागियों को मैं प्रणाम करता हूँ, अभिनंदन करता हूँ और धन्यवाद भी देता हूँ. आज आपने कश्मीर और हिमाचल प्रदेश के मंदिर स्थापत्य और वहाँ के प्राचीन मंदिरों के बारे में जाना. आगे आने वाले समय में और भी भारत के अन्य प्रदेशों के प्राचीन मंदिर स्थापत्य कला के बारे में हम जानेंगे. यह विषय बहुत ही रोचक है और बहुत सारी बातें जो हमारे ग्रंथों में लिखी हुई हैं वो मंदिरों में किस तरह से उजागर होती है, उसका सारा ज्ञान हमें इस व्याख्यान श्रेणी में, इस ऑनलाइन कोर्स में प्राप्त हो रहा है. और आने वाले समय में और भी नई नई बातें जानने को मिलेगी. इस BL इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडोलॉजी के द्वारा आयोजित ऑनलाइन सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स में स्थापत्य और मूर्तिकला के विषय में हम लोग ज्ञान प्राप्त कर रहे हैं. सभी को मैं धन्यवाद देता हूं. विशेष करके हम डॉक्टर पवन जी का आभार मानते हैं, जिन्होंने इस विषय में विशेष वर्षों की मेहनत दिखाई देती है और उसके द्वारा हमें ज्ञान दे रहे हैं. और हमारे जो इस श्रेणी के सपोर्टर स्पॉन्सर हैं, उन सभी स्पॉन्सर्स का भी आभार मानता हूं. संस्थान के हमारे सभी वहीवटकर्ता, मतलब जो कमिटी मेंबर्स हैं, उन सबका आभार मानता हूं. और सभी का आभार मानते हुए इस आज के व्याख्यान का समापन करता हूं. धन्यवाद.
Thank you. Thank you.